good it is, and then he says that if he spent his life without knowing about this dish, it would be as if he ate grass his entire life. The restaurant owner is so grateful about this that he gives Rice his family heirloom, which is a recipe for spirit food, thus making his new quest already completed. And immediately a thought comes to his mind, as he got that spirit fruit from Epicure, maybe he can use this recipe to make something with that fruit. Bros, one of the most interesting things about this manhwa, for me, what I'm expecting is for Rice to cook some legendary in-game food, maybe like this spirit fruit he recently got that basically said he'd die if he tried it, so it's pretty useless to him, and now when he gets the recipe for exactly that spirit fruit he has, maybe he can cook some legendary food. Anyways, Rice feels really lucky right now, and the window notification says that thanks to our protagonist, the locals from Badran can enjoy cooking meat again, and it says that all of its citizens will sing songs about the one who helped improve their lives, and he gets a bunch of new achievements, including the one where he affects the history book again. And as he's leaving Badran now, the chef Moy tells him to come back again. He gets a new notification, but this one looks slightly more fancy, saying that his interest in Michelin has increased by 30 points. Sometimes later, we see Rice being swarmed by a bunch of people asking him to sell them some food. People now recognize him on the streets immediately when they see him, as he's got quite a bit of popularity now. He tells them that he won't do any cooking now, and the people insist, with some of them saying that they've been looking for him for so long, and some interrupting their raids just to see him. And then the annoying cook comes as well from our protagonist's back and tells him to cook something simple for him. He continues telling him that Rice shouldn't act like some top-notch chef, as anyone can cook, and the people that give him attention are just naive and they don't know any better. One of the guys protests and says that he's just a hater, and the Korean cuisine king tells him that he's just telling the truth. Rice, now hearing enough of his nonsense, turns around to face him and challenges him for a cooking competition to end this once and for all. So it's a cook-off. The Korean cuisine king accepts the challenge, telling him that he was ready and wanted this all along. So they both start making food, passionately working on it. We see that Korean cuisine king is putting his all into it and is making chicken skewers with all he has. He's confident in his skills because he has over 10 years of cooking experience, and he firmly believes it won't betray him, especially now that he's practiced making food since he last saw our protagonist with the focus on exactly this food, chicken skewers. He just wants to prove Rice wrong and make him pay for ignoring him before. And after a bit of time, they are already finished, with the Korean cuisine king forcing attention to himself and proudly saying that he wants people to try his food first. He thinks that there's not much skill required cooking here, as this is just a game. So one of the guys tries his skewers first and is pretty happy with it. He says that it's grilled really well and that it feels light in the mouth. The Korean cuisine king tells Rice that him practicing making chicken skewers all this time is what will give him an edge over our protagonist, but Rice is just looking indifferent to this entire chat. Then the time came for the same guy to now try Rice's skewers, and as soon as he has the first bite, he's already on the 7th heaven, saying that such a sensational texture can only be achieved with an utmost perfection in this cooking trade. He then goes through the familiar heavenly experience eating Rice's food, and at the end, without any hesitation, raises Rice's hand, announcing him as the winner of the small competition between him and the Korean cuisine king. Our protagonist is just standing there, being kinda spaced out, not even really present. He's probably thinking about something else and could care less about this competition. The people then start commenting on the Rice's food being the best, and also making some comments saying that the blonde cook overestimates himself too much. Why would he even think that he can come close to Rice in terms of cooking? Listening to this infuriates the Korean cuisine king, and he copes that it's due to their bad sense of taste. The Korean cuisine king, in anger, shouts at our protagonist and asks him what secret he is using to make his food better, and Rice just tells him that there are no secrets, just as he told him before, and it's just his skills, and then tells the Korean cuisine king that he hopes that he also also improves his skills. This makes him even more upset as his face grows with anger, showing vengeance, scheming some plans on how to get back at our protagonist. Now we see Leticia, the team leader that is in charge of designing the game, and she's going through the clips of different users and seems to be lost in her thoughts. The blue-haired guy comes along and says hi to her and then asks her why she's not going home. He says that since the day after the weekend, he's just there to see if she still has some work left. Leticia tells him that she's just watching the clips of users. The blue-haired guy notices our protagonist's clip and mentions him. We now learn that Rice is Leticia's favorite user and the blue-haired guy is aware of it. She says that today she's not watching his clips, but the clips of the users with the highest completion chance for the main quest and are close to winning $1 million. We see them now looking at some huge devil looking like monster. Leticia continues saying that just as she expected, only 1 month since the opening of the game and the gap between users is already pretty evident now. The blue-haired guy says that especially in the past few days, there have been users who stood out and show that they are different. After a short pause, the blue-haired guy asks Leticia who she thinks has the best chances in terms of clearing the main quest. She said that it's probably gourmet Epicure now playing his clips. She says that he is a user with a hidden quest that allows him to absorb abilities by eating monsters. So his progression is interesting and he's the highest scorer among the users. And now it kinda makes sense that Epicure previously told our protagonist that he too has a fraudulent way of gaining experience. They stare at the clips for a while and then the blue-haired guy comes up with another question of who has already completed the most in terms of the main quest. Leticia tells him that it has to be the Uga Chaga. Blue-haired guy finds the name funny, just like I did now, and calls it a caveman guy. Leticia confirms that just like his name, his personality reflects that too. She says that's really unique though, and since he only focuses on clearing the quest and expanding his map, he even succeeded in obtaining the red flute in West Bedran. And now the clip they are showing, we can see a masked man in a red cape wrapped around him with fire burning all around him. She says that Uga Chaga is almost done clearing the legend quest, which is a quest given by the Devil King. The blue-haired guy is surprised that they have a quest by the Devil King as he didn't know about it. Leticia is surprised by him that we now learn to be the company's representative, not knowing that they have such quests in the game. He says that it's not his responsibility to know each and every individual scenario in the game. It would be too much for him, and I agree, it makes sense. He then makes a joke that maybe she should fill in the reports instead of him, and she says that she'd rather leave that job to him. The company representative then asks Leticia if she sent a gift to her grandfather that used to have a restaurant, and we learned that she used to respect that grandfather a lot when she was younger. Bros, I wonder who the grandfather might be. So she tells him that she sent the gift, but that she's not too sure he'd know how to use the device. And now back with our protagonist, and he's still surrounded by people. They greet him and ask him of all kinds of requests, from joining them to some quests and raids to petting his meow. So yeah, Rice then thinks to himself that after the last raid, a lot of people now recognize him and he just wants people to leave him alone so that he can play in peace. And just as he was thinking that, he gets a specially golden notification telling him that a Lord of Entertainment, Oscar, is interested in him. And then another one saying that the culinary Lord Michelin finds Oscar's interest unpleasant. And then another one saying that Oscar is paying even more attention to him now. This leaves our protagonist wondering what's going on. He then gets an offer to change his occupation to entertainer, which would mean that his current occupation would be completely erased. And as Rice was criticizing the offer, new messages pop up telling him that Oscar is no longer interested in him and that Michelin's interest went up by 50%. And as that happens, Meow notices bright light coming from our protagonist, and as the pet looks, we see that there's a light emanating from Rice with shiny sparks all around him. He gets a new message telling him that the culinary lord granted him the skill kitchen. Getting a new skill makes Rice really pleased, and he pets Meow and puts him on his shoulder. He thinks to himself that he thought he already left his noob phase of the game, but he keeps discovering more and more, realizing how many more things there are that he can discover in this game. In the meantime, we see some soldiers calling people to join them for the subjugation quest called 1000-Year Castle, but people don't seem to be too interested in it and are thinking of some quests that they think would be more fun. The soldier seems desperate for someone to join him on the quest, but people are not interested, so they leave. And as he was beating himself up for not finding another person, Rice comes along telling him he'll go with him. Rice tells him that he's not a warrior though, and the soldier condescendingly tells him that he's at least good at making them some food, and as long as he doesn't get in their way, there won't be any issues. Our protagonist accepts the quest, even if the reward is nothing to his interest. A bit later, we see Rice with 3 other soldiers getting into the castle, where their goal is to defeat a bunch of gremlins. And as they were walking towards the castle, the other soldiers express their concern with bringing a mere cook with them. The team leader says that it's fine, as he can make them some lunch boxes, and right when one of the soldiers warns the team leader soldier that they should be careful as they are already in the enemy territory, the team leader stumbles on a rope that triggers a trap with a huge blade almost chopping him in half. Then a bunch of the green angry looking gremlins start jumping at them. The team leader and our protagonist put up a good fight right from the start, but the 2 other guys get too scared seeing these nasty gremlins and are unable to fight. And after some time, in a ferocious battle, they manage to deal with the gremlins, and the team leader is now praising Rice for his fighting skill and is requesting him to make a meal for his men, as they are not in shape to go unless they recover. He says that since they are rookies, they must have been overwhelmed with the monster's energy, and his meal could definitely help them out. Our protagonist gladly accepts it, as he wanted to try something out anyways, so he then activates his new ability, Kitchen, and all of a sudden, a kitchen magically starts coming out of the ground with all the kitchen utensils and pots coming with it. It's a sight to behold, as the soldiers are just looking in wonder while all this magic is happening right in front of them, and our protagonist is just thinking to himself how this will change everything for him, as it's the power of a lord when he can literally summon a kitchen out of nowhere. And right there in front of him, there is an entire kitchen already magically assembled with all the things a chef would want to have in his own kitchen. A short time after the kitchen assembled, our protagonist is already at it, and every time he cooks, he pours his soul into it. This time he's making yuko, which is a kind of a raw beef with rice, from what I can tell, and the smell is irresistible, making the soldiers' appetites go up even more. They say that they've never seen any food look and smell so good in their entire NPC lives. Every aspect of his food is an art in itself. Not even tasting the food, they already start acknowledging Rice's skills when it comes to making food, and after some time, the food is already done, and as per usual, it increases stats as well, but this time a slightly bit more than before, so our protagonist is really happy about that. The soldiers are all ecstatic about the meal. They start eating, and it immediately transfers them to the land of pleasure, where their taste buds feel as if they are in heaven. They are thinking that how the different tastes mixed together is perfect, creating this new texture that they've never tasted before. And meanwhile, our protagonist hasn't had a yuko in quite some time, so he is excited to try it after that long. And as he tries it, we see this dramatic display of enjoyment. The guy becomes a cow for a second, as he was able to accentuate the taste of beef to its fullest, where all other tastes with it serve under the supreme taste of beef, the king beef. And as he's enjoying this heavenly experience, our protagonist gets interrupted with a powerful sucker punch that came out of nowhere, blowing him away some distance, and the plate of food he ate also fell to the ground. It's the gremlin commander, and he's there telling our protagonist that he cannot allow them to come to his territory and enjoy themselves with food that much. He also says that they probably came here to die, as he doesn't understand why they would have relaxed this much in the enemy territory. And Rice gets up from the ground and we see his face with more fury than ever before. He really looks like he's not playing with anyone anymore. And as the Gremlin commander leaps for another attack, Rice shouts with a piercing voice and a laser conviction that he shouldn't have disturbed anyone having a good meal. This Gremlin can see in his eyes that he spells death for anyone he faces now. But right before he did anything, the Gremlin commander gets smacked from the two different sides by soldiers now full of energy and bravery. Seeing this, Rice gets surprised, thinking that these two soldiers that were covering with fear in an earlier battle now jump at their strong enemy without any hesitation in their heart. And then as the Gremlin commander was still on the ground, pissed off at what just happened to him, thinking of how he'll avenge himself against them, the team leader jumps at him with what looks like a powerful attack and shouts that he better not mess with anyone's meal, and then delivers a final blow to the Gremlin King. Rice is standing there flabbergasted at all this, as he couldn't believe how well the soldiers fought together. The Gremlin commander is completely knocked out. The soldiers then tell our protagonist how grateful they are for his meal, as it recovered their energy and they could fight. Rice is happy to hear this and tells them that that's probably not the only thing that happened with his meal. Even though he didn't see it, they should also get their stats up, like attack and defense, which probably helped too. We can already see the soldiers much more confident in their abilities and how they think they'll handle this quest, and the team leader tells them that he thinks this will be a fun time for them. And sometimes after, we can already see our protagonist at it, effectively using his trademark abilities, weak point detection and focus tip, defeating gremlins wherever he points his sword. The gremlins don't stand a chance, even the soldiers are doing so well and are holding their own, with their leader doing the best, blasting the gremlins with his powerful ultimate champion attack. And after a while of grinding these gremlins, they finally come to the gremlin leader that threatens them not to underestimate gremlin's power. But without even waiting for him to finish his speech, the soldiers are already dropping at him with their swords, cutting him down without any problems. Even the gremlin leader was shocked but didn't have much time to react before he was taken out. And now, with a full aura of confidence, they tell him that it was his mistake to underestimate humans. And it wasn't too long before the gremlin commander was already out with his last words in his mouth, saying that humans are wicked. And we can already see the notification window telling them that the gremlin leader has been defeated, and our protagonist praises everyone for doing well in this quest. Team leader says that Rice really surprised them with both his fighting and cooking abilities, and our protagonist comments that he just doesn't want to be a burden to anyone, so he had to take care of it. The team leader agrees with it and says that, opposite to slowing them down, that he was of great help to them. Now Rice is wondering why he didn't get a notification that the quest has been completed as he usually gets it. And as he turns around, he notices that it'll be a sunrise soon, so he suggests they go back together. The team leader's eyes spark with malice and BAM! Suddenly, he drives his sword straight through our protagonist's chest from the back, saying that they will go back, but without him. Rice is standing there looking at the blade that is coming out of his chest with blood spurting out. And then the treacherous team leader comes closer to his ear from behind and tells him that getting rid of these low-level monsters was never an issue for them. Their biggest problem is the outsider like him coming to Badran, trying to act against the Demon King and defeat his army. And then the guy pulls out the sword that was stuck in Rice's back and tells him that they couldn't afford not doing anything about it. Rice starts coughing out blood, and as he looks at the soldiers, they start transforming, with horns growing out of their heads and their eyes now glowing with sinister deep red. Even their skin loses the life it maintained until now and starts looking more like a decayed, bloodless flesh. The demon soldier continues that their original mission was to wipe out the gremlins so that they stop them from expanding their territory, and he also thought that they might get rid of anyone that gets in their way. He also says that they'll get promoted because of slaying Rice. Looking down on his bloody blade, he adds that in case our protagonist didn't notice, that his sword was covered in scorpion's poison and it's already spread throughout his body and that he won't be able to survive. And with their changed looks now, we learn that their name is Dark Followers, which are the Demon King's forces. The Dark Follower leader, ignoring our suffering protagonist, tells his two other subordinates that they should go to the top to find where the rest of the gremlins are hiding. And as they continue their discussion, something draws the leader's attention and he looks towards where Rice is, and to his utter shock, he sees our protagonist getting up from the ground, saying that he should have checked it earlier. He did notice that their stats didn't go up when he gave them the meal, and he found that peculiar, and the reason that it didn't go up is because they are meant to be his enemies. And now Rice, even though mortally wounded, seems to have gathered his energy and is looking at them with focus. The Dark Followers can't believe that he's still alive and are now drawing their swords out and getting ready for our protagonist. And then Rice pulls out his special sword on the side and summons his freezing shield on the other side, saying that he can definitely handle this much. The notification comes saying that the details of the quest have been updated, and now it says that a new line has been added where besides defeating the gremlins, he needs to exterminate all of the Dark Followers, and the reward is pretty good as well. And Rice is also thinking how this is the first time he's taking on a boss all by himself since he changed his class to chef. So this time he's against 3 other formidable looking opponents and is ready to engage in the fight, so he launches himself at them, clashing swords with their leader. The Dark Follower leader praises him for being able to withstand the deadly poison in his body. He adds that they now have more of a reason to get rid of him, as he might become an even bigger nuisance later on. The battle continues and it's fierce, with the demon forces now much stronger than how they decided to show themselves to our protagonist while they were fighting gremlins. They were hiding their true power, and this makes Rice really worried, and he cannot underestimate them now. This is the first time he is encountering the demon soldiers that he heard so much about. The Dark Follower leader tells Rice that after they kill him, they'll be able to kill the others as well, and in that way nip them in the bud before any of them become more of a trouble. They say that in this way, Sir Raiden, who is one of the devils, will become even more powerful. As Rice was focusing on the 2 of them, one of them sneaked up on him from the back and went for a full attack, but luckily our protagonist skillfully repelled his attack by placing his sword on his back, because if this attack went through, that would be the end for our protagonist. But he's still holding on, and his battle presence in this fight is stronger than ever, as he knows he's fighting for his life. The swords swing keep coming at him, with him successfully matching them defensively, but then as he was getting overwhelmed with the non-stop attacks from the devil soldiers, the leader tells him that he's doing well and then shouts "Ultimate Champion," coming through between his subordinates and getting a straight powerful punch on our protagonist. This blasts him back, but Rice is able to quickly recover from this and is getting up again and facing the devil's commander, now looking even more devilish with his tongue sticking out as if he just came from some hentai manga. Being surrounded by them, Rice knows that he won't be able to win if he continues fighting like this. He has to change his game plan and bring the heat up a notch. He thinks that since the devil soldiers are humanoids, they don't seem to have a wide attack range and plan their attacks to match each other. Or in other words, their strongest ace is that they are fighting like a team and they work really well together. And if he is to have any chance against them, being already hurt like he is, he'll have to just keep pushing forward without rest, not giving them any time to come up with strategies. It'll have to be like cooking a full course meal to give himself an analogy that he can relate with. He then uses his ability to find their weak points and then charges at them with full might. Seeing him not losing the battle spark in him, the devil soldiers say that it's better for them if he keeps struggling, as the Sir Raiden will grow in power that way. way. But right before he landed his strike, he uses his Fire Master skill, where he fire engulfs his sword, and then on top of that he uses his focus tip power, making this one of the strongest attacks we've seen from him. My bro straight up used Sunbreed in first form, and once his sword came in contact with the Devil Soldier's leader, it produced a huge explosion, blasting the leader all the way back, with his subordinate skull and his name in shock. And as soon as the fire settled down, we already see our protagonist engaging in a sword fight with the two other Devil Soldiers. The blades keep clashing and clashing, and then Rice uses his frost power, charging up his shield, and then rushes at them, freezing the soldiers and everything around them as soon as he hits them with it. His enemies are now frozen, and Rice is heavily breathing, standing there in front of them and looking like he just achieved Ultra Instinct. He then goes for his focus tip attack and strikes the ice, crushing all of it into bits, and in that way successfully dealing with the two of the soldiers. But he was not to get his well-deserved rest yet, as the team leader calls his name, saying that he is impressed with our protagonist and that his abilities would have been well suited for the Demon Lord instead. And as Rice turns around, he sees the demon leader now with burned clothes and looking even less human than before, with sharp teeth, sinister eyes, radiating with an absolute malice as he was walking up to him. What he sees in front of him can only be described as the evil incarnate, imbued with a desire to destroy everything that's good. But Rice is still not fazed by this sight and tells him that the world without the proper cuisine is the worst, and he doesn't want to live in such a world. These words trigger a reaction in the demon soldier and patronizingly tell him that people only live to eat. He then suddenly leaps at our protagonist, but this time with his mouth open wide, wanting to sink his teeth into Rice. And as our protagonist was calmly observing him going towards him, he says that animals eat to live, and so do humans, which is why chefs exist, and that's a sufficient of motivation for Rice to fight for it. He then charges at him and performs a really elegant but a powerful sword technique, evading the demon leader's attack and subtly slicing him up all around his body, taking him down in one attack. The creature then screams in agony from the pain he received, but more from the pain of him letting his boss down than the deadly wound of our protagonist that he inflicted on him, as he screams his boss's name, saying that he stayed loyal to the end, and then finally dropping down and dying right there on the spot. Rice still is looking at the dead creature for a moment, not ready to put his guard down, as it wouldn't be the first time he got surprised by their durability. But the creature is really dead, so Rice relaxes, saying that that last attack took a big toll on him in terms of his stamina, as he placed everything he had on that final move. And right then, the notification comes popping up saying that the Dark Follower's extermination quest is complete. And then a stream of other window notifications starts popping out as he gets a lot of rewards and his stats go up. Rice figures that this is the most he ever got in a single mission. And as he was thinking that, the stones beneath his feet start gathering around and then coming together into a pot, which he concludes is his last reward. The notification says that he got a 1,000-year pot, and our protagonist immediately comes up with a use for this legendary item. Of course he'll use it to ferment food, bros. This guy only thinks in terms of cooking, but we got used to it anyway, so it's not a problem. So he gets another notification that makes him kinda uncomfortable, saying that the Devil Raiden is now aware of his existence, and then something starts happening as Rice, slightly panicked, tries to figure out what's going on. Now we go back to the real world and see a kid in dirty clothes walking down the street, crying his eyes out, saying that he needs help and that he is really hungry. We then see this kid's memory where his dad left him, telling him that he had to go on a business trip and that he shouldn't leave the house and he should wait for him until he comes back. The dad was reluctant to tell the kid exactly when he'd be back, so he just told him that he'll return in a couple of days and that he shouldn't open doors for anyone besides him. And the person that heard this kid's cries and his desperate call for help was our protagonist. He ran into him as he was passing through that street. The kid's name is Jaeyoung, and Aram, feeling sorry for him, took him back home to prepare him a meal. Our protagonist first checks for what food he has available in his kitchen cupboards, and he finds some sausages and asks the kid if he'd like those. The kid gladly accepts it, and then they have a conversation with the kid telling him that it's been 5 days since his dad went away and he's still not back home. The kid also says that his mom doesn't live with them anymore. Aaron was curious as to what the kid ate during those 5 days, and we learned that he only had the rice from the rice cooker and chili paste, and he would mix those two together and eat that. Jae-young also says that he had that food for a few days, but then he even ran out of it and didn't have any food for several days after. Listening to this, our protagonist is thinking, what kind of parents would leave their kid to starve? It's awful, and these are some terrible parents, he thinks. This reminded him of his own memories, where it also seems that he got neglected as a child. Hearing this kid's story infuriates him. How could these people even call themselves parents when they left their kid to die like that? What could a poor child do to deserve that? He then ponders over the situation and offers the kid to make him some tteokbokki. And I now googled this. This is like a popular Korean street food, usually made with rice cakes, fish cakes, and chili paste. So bros, my Korean culinary knowledge is increasing, I would say. Anyways, Aram then turns on the stove and starts boiling some water. He first thinks if he should make it with wheat or rice flour. He chose to make this food as kids love it, as they sell them on the snack stalls and they taste great. He is a bit worried about not being able to make it, as he still can't taste it, but he'll do his best relying on his skills alone. He then adds each ingredient carefully with precise measurement, keeping in mind that he's making this meal for a kid, and so he has to take it easy with some seasonings. So he puts a tablespoon of chili powder and 2 of sugar and 2 of soy sauce and so on until he gets this beautiful color. Now he needs to let it simmer. Then he lets it boil and then adds a cup of onions, and once the sauce thickens, he just needs to give it a nice mix. The process of making the food is always a special experience with Aram, and just like that, it's already done. The snack stall tteokbokki is ready to serve, looking more delicious the longer you look at it. Aram then serves a plate of a delicious looking tteokbokki in front of the kid and tells him to enjoy his meal. The kid is amazed at the food he's seen and instantly recognizes that Aram might be a cook. Jae-young tells him that he didn't have this food in a long time and then takes a bite. But as soon as he puts it in his mouth, he starts coughing, which startles our protagonist, thinking that he made a mistake. The kid tells him through his teeth that it's spicy, and this makes Aram really disappointed, thinking that he couldn't control the spice of the food as he can't taste, and he knew it'd be a risk making this food for a kid. He then pours some milk for Jae-young to ease down the spice sensations in his mouth, but then all of a sudden, the kid lifts his head up with nothing but joy on his face and tells our protagonist that even though it's spicy, it's really delicious. And now he's breathing fast, trying to cool down his tongue. He then keeps eating and looking like he enjoys every new bite he takes. After seeing that the kid is really enjoying his meal, our protagonist concludes that it's a success as he made the food the kid is pleased with. Jae-young even adds that this is the best tteokbokki he ever tried. Everything fits well with everything else. The kid doesn't have words for it, but every single ingredient is made with such love and passion that it's as if it's meant for him. The kid tries different combinations of ingredients, putting them in different order, and no matter what he does, it always comes out the best way possible. Seeing how much the kid was enjoying it, Aram also joins in on it, not even asking the kid if he can eat from the same plate. The kid realizes that our protagonist was also hungry and then suggests he make some more so that they can eat together. The atmosphere is amazing as Aram finally managed to relieve this kid's pain and make him forget about his situation, even if it's just for a short time. Now we see a drunk, moody chef Daewon throwing a tantrum on how he hates Mr. Lim's restaurant and how he was disrespected there. He also wonders how did Aram get employed there, because according to him, he had to pull off some dirty tricks to start working there. The snack shop owner tells him that he should stop talking about him as Aram is not their employer anymore and they have nothing to do with him. This makes Daewon even more annoyed, so that he slams his fist on the table, saying that there's no way that he lets this go as he was cursed at in front of everyone there. And he adds that what also annoys him is that he noticed that Miri took a liking to Aram. Miri, passing by, sees this pathetic display and gets irritated, and the moody chef asks her if she's still in contact with our protagonist, to which she reluctantly responds that she is. Daewon then, with a smug expression on his face, says that that confirms his suspicions that she likes him more than a friend. This seems to have pressed some sensitive spots in Miri, because she has an outburst of anger shouting that she doesn't like Aram like that and that she actually just likes his cooking, and that's all. Boss tells her that she should hold it in for a bit as Daewon is just drunk. The moody chef then says that he at least needs to sue the owner of the Lim's restaurant so that he can feel at peace. After an opposition from his colleagues, he says that he was threatened and they should stand as his witnesses. Uni says that it's completely unreasonable as he was the one that started the whole mess by getting angry and throwing a fit. The snack shop owner also adds, now in an angry voice, that he shouldn't go making trouble and he should just calm down. Miri says that he was the one that wanted perilla oil mac noodles, which is why they took him there, since Aram is really good at making those, and that even he has to admit that they were tasty. And as Miri wasn't able to hold in anymore, she tells him that he should keep his inferiority complex down and spare them of it. This makes Daewon really angry now, to the point that he was about to explode, and the boss, noticing this, starts panicking, not knowing what to do, as he knows how crazy Daewon can be once he gets furious. So he tries to calm down the situation, but Daewon keeps repeating her words back to himself. Miri, knowing that there's no backing out of what she just said, doubles down on it, saying that he knows that she's right, and that ever since the day Aram arrived, his inferiority complex grew, and how he only knows how to look down on people without acknowledging them and their efforts. Daewon then bursts out with all the anger, shouting that she should shut up and that she should know her place as she's only the front staff. Boss is holding him so that he doesn't go at her. And then right when Daewon threatens her with violence, we see Miri's grandfather, Chairman Yu-soon, telling him in disbelief how can he be saying those things to someone else's precious child. Daewon turns around to see who it is and sees the artist Yu-soon and gets really surprised, asking him what he is doing there. Yu-soon, not responding to this question, orders his security guard to deal with it, and just moments after, we see the security guard grabbing Daewon and throwing him on the ground, telling him that he should stay still. And as the guard is keeping Moody Cook on the ground, Mr. Yu-soon tells them that he just came here to see where his granddaughter works, and then he ended up seeing all of this mess. Daewon is really shocked to learn that Miri is his granddaughter, and he can't believe it. Mr. Yu-soon then turns towards his granddaughter and asks her what she wants to be done, as she was the one that was threatened. Miri then tells Daewon that he should apologize to her, and seeing that he has no way out and that things could only get much worse for him, Daewon then reluctantly apologizes, telling her that he was drunk. She also adds that if they ever see each other, that he should act like he doesn't know her from there on. She then thanks her boss for everything and says that today will be her last day, and then walks out of the snack shop. Bros, in before she starts working at the restaurant where Aram is working right now. That would be kinda crazy. And we see Daemon is still in disbelief of Miri actually being Yu-soon's granddaughter. Now we go back to our protagonist, who brought Jae-young to Mr. Lim, explaining his situation to him. Mr. Lim, being nice as he is, says that the kid can stay at their restaurant and eat as much as he can. Mr. Lin then tells the kid that if he knows the way to their restaurant, he can have all of his meals at it. Aram offers to pay for all of the kid's expenses, but Mr. Lim says that it won't be necessary and that he should just find out more about the kid's father's situation. And a bit later, we see our protagonist as he's heading back home, and he's thinking of how fortunate he is to have such a great and caring boss, and then he starts thinking of what kind of father can actually abandon his kid just like that. And as he was thinking about it, he runs into Miri, and after getting to sit on a nearby bench, Miri explains everything that happened to her and how she left her work for good. Aram starts blaming himself for what happened, but Miri reassures him that he had no part in this and it's all that idiot Daewon's fault. Our protagonist then asks her if she now needs work, and she tells him that as an adult she can't stay unemployed, so she needs to immediately look for work. And as this reminded her of her misfortune, she starts getting worried, but then Aram draws her attention by asking her if she'd like to work at the place where he is working. He adds that he'll have to ask the owner as it's not his place, and without letting him explain it any further, Miri, all excited, agrees to it, saying that she wants to work at a place where he is working. Aram is taken aback a bit, telling her that he expected her to think over his offer, but she's really excited about it and keeps repeating that she wants to work at his restaurant. My girl is thirsty. She even asks him to set up a time when she can start working. Aram, seeing that she made her mind about it, doesn't want to question her determination and tells her that he'll ask the owner about all of the details. She then gets up from the bench all thrilled, saying that she escaped unemployment in a day and how this whole experience was actually a blessing in disguise. She then tells our protagonist that she'll work really hard, and as a reward, could he make something tasty for her sometimes. Hearing her this happy, Aram thinks how ironic life can be, as they were suffering in the same workplace just a few days ago, and now already they have a chance for a better life working together at a different place. He thinks how life is really unpredictable this way. And sometimes later, we have our protagonist back in the video game where he returned to the place where he fought that time, and he gets a notification telling him that now he unlocked a warp point ability that enables him to fast travel to different points in the game that he already unlocked. And it says that it won't work on unexplored areas, but only cities and towns that he already explored. He then starts thinking how this game is becoming more comfortable the more he plays it, which means that he got stronger in the game. But now he's ready to take a break and try cooking that spirit fruit that he got from Epicure. So he starts by summoning a kitchen with his new ability, where all of a sudden an entire kitchen shows up. He then takes the spirit fruit, thinking to himself how the next step is for him to boil the fruit until the spirit fruit turns blue color, as that signifies it's done boiling. He's got that recipe, and as long as he follows it properly, he'll be able to make the spirit fruit without any difficulties. So then takes a pot with water and places the fruit inside and puts it over the fire. As the spirit fruit starts boiling, it releases a smell that smells familiar to Rice, and he thinks it smells really good. And after some time, the fruit turns blue color, and so Rice knows it's done, but he also gets a window notification telling him that water spirits are showing interest in the spirit fruit, which means that this part of its preparation is done. So he then takes fruit out of the pot and starts drying it until the skin is sky blue, which is what it says in the recipe. And after doing that for some time, the fruit turns all slightly paler color, and Rice gets a new notification telling him that wind spirits are showing interest in the spirit fruit, which now means that the next step is also done. As that is done, our protagonist pulls his 1000-year pot out of his inventory because he needs to ferment the fruit using this. And as he pulls the pot out, he gets an inventory box of the pot where he can place different items in. The 1000-year pot allows 4 items at one time. So he then just figures how it works and just drags the spirit fruit inside the pot's inventory. And as soon as he places it inside, the notification comes telling him that the spirit fruit is being fermented now. And as he was setting up the timer on the pot, a notification window shows up again saying that the earth spirits are showing interest in the spirit fruit. And as soon as this happens, our protagonist starts smelling another familiar scent from it, which makes him feel great. And after some time, the timer goes off, showing that the fermentation process is already done. So he pulls it out, and we see the spirit fruit is now looking orange. And now Rice just needs to grill it as the last step according to the recipe. And after the fruit starts getting grilled, the notification comes up saying that the fire spirits are now showing interest in the spirit fruit. And this shows that the spirit fruit is prepared, so he takes it out of the fire and gets a notification that fruit is done, and now he's got a cooked spirit fruit, which is a fruit that spirits enjoy eating. Rice is really pleased with it and is ready to have a bite at it, but first he decides to peel the skin, and as he peels it, he notices the scent coming from the fruit. It's very unique as it reminds him of both apple and pineapple at the same time, and the strange thing about it is that it keeps changing the smell into other fruits. He then cuts it into small bits, and a seed comes out of it with notification telling him that he can grow it into a spirit tree. He decides to store the seed for later when he finds a place where he can grow it into a proper tree. And the time finally came for him to taste the fruit, and he can't wait to try it out. And as soon as he has a bite of it, the freshness of the taste hits him immediately, where he's only able to describe it as a dreamy taste that reminds him of sweetness combined with refreshing taste from a fantasy forest. And the taste is definitely different from anything he's ever tried before. The notification then pops up saying that as he consumes the spirit fruit, he'll be able to see spirits for 10 hours. And then all of a sudden, his eyes get a bright shine, and as if being transferred to a new dimension, our protagonist is left flabbergasted, and he looks up and he sees all kinds of little creatures flying. Some of them are yellow, some blue, some green, and some red, and he is amazed at seeing this as everything looks so colorful and uplifting. Rice then thinks that these flying creatures must be the spirits, and also that the 10 hours that he'll be able to see them for means in-game hours and not the real time. He also has a hunch that there might be a hidden quest for him if he could only find it. He then greets them and they look at him with wonder, as nobody should be able to see them in this world. One of them comes down to him and asks him if he can actually see them, and Rice says that he can, so the spirits start discussing among themselves if Rice maybe has a pure soul. They are all really shocked by this, but after getting over it, one of them mentions that they should maybe ask him for a favor, and as soon as Rice heard about the favor, he knew that he'll get the quest. So then the spirits explain their request, and he gets a notification telling him that he got a rare hidden quest open to him where he needs to liberate the spirits. The word rare catches our protagonist's attention, so he starts thinking that this type of quest has to be even better than the normal hidden quest, so he decides to accept it. The spirits then tell Rice to follow them, and a moment after, we see our protagonist running really fast, barely being able to follow them as they were flying. He starts thinking that a reason why this quest is considered high level is because it's this difficult, as he's having a lot of problems catching up to them. And at this moment, he gets a message from Mango, and it's the whisper that you can send to your friends. Rice is pretty happy to see him, and Mango tells him that he found out that our protagonist broke his record in the famine relief cave. So they have a laugh about it, and Mango, all excited about his achievement, tells him that he's now in charge of training veteran soldiers, and Rice notes that that means that his influence will shoot up. Mango then tells him that he was thinking of making a group chat with all of his friends, and he asks our protagonist if he could be interested in joining them. And since we're talking about group chats, bros, be sure to join our Discord, link is in the description below. Anyways, back to the story. And Rice, as he's all tired from the running, tells him that he'll think about it, but right now he's in the middle of the quest, so he'll have to get back to him later. And we see our protagonist continuing running, exerting all of the strength he's got to be able to just follow the spirits. Spirits keep motivating him, telling him that they only have a little bit more to arrive at their destination. And after a lot of running, they finally get to the location with our protagonist at the end of his energy, as he thinks if it was a bit longer he probably wouldn't be able to follow them anymore. But they finally arrived, and it's a village called Dodian, and this is where the spirits' friends are captured. It's a beautiful village in the middle of the forest, all shiny from the light spread all out across it, with waterfalls and river streams. Rice can't believe that there's such a place all the way inside the forest. And as he approaches the village's entrance, the barrier shows up, not allowing him to enter the village. The green spirit explains that it's probably the so-called savior that is denying him an entrance. She tells him that the savior is living on top of the hill in the Odian village. She then continues by saying that this self-proclaimed savior showed up one day in their village and trapped their friends in a strange marble using the power of the spirits, and he also isolated Odian village. This confuses our protagonist a bit, as he can't reconcile this guy being called savior by the spirits but doing all these things. Then they take him to the top of the hill, with the green spirit telling him that the savior is on the altar and that rice is their only hope of saving their friends. And as he approaches the altar, he sees a creature sitting there, and upon just seeing him up close, our protagonist is sure that this creature is a boss. Savior looks at Rice with a menacing look. Feeling really threatened by this creature, Rice immediately takes out his weapons and tries using his ability to find this creature's weak point, but after some time he realizes that he cannot find the creature's weak point at all, so it dawns on him that the creature could be 4 stars or higher. And as he was thinking of all that, he gets suddenly hit with a shock of electricity. And it's actually one of the other spirits called Electron, as the spirit recognizes him. They can't believe that even he was captured by the savior and is now being used for his own goals. Even though it was a tough attack, Rice survived and is still standing. He says that he experienced electric attacks before and that this shouldn't take him out. But then, with the guy touching up a red looking flute, Electron attacks our protagonist once again, electrocuting him again, but this time inflicting much more damage, from which Rice is unable to recover as he drops down to his knees with more than half of his life points away. Meow! Seeing him in this state, quickly jumps on top of his head and starts performing its health needing ability, healing our protagonist. The savior then just sharply says that if he interferes, he'll die, and Rice, barely conscious from the last attacks he suffered, is just barely able to hear this threat. Sometimes later, after they moved away from the savior, we see our protagonist saying that he never had an opponent that overwhelming. Little spirits ask Rice if he may have noticed the dark marble where their friends are trapped. One of the spirits then adds that it's not just their friends that are captured, but also the villagers are trapped in the dark marble as well. He says that because of the barrier, they can't leave the forest, so it's been really difficult for them. The savior forced villagers to make offerings, and all of the offerings, which are the food they've given him, are filled with negative energy from their struggle. And this negative energy is the source of the marble's power. And as the power of the dark marble grows, spirits, friends, and the Odian village. And before the spirit was able to finish the sentence, our protagonist continues, now aware of what's going on. He continues by saying that they are becoming the savior's slaves. And now we see some of these villagers walking past our protagonist, completely defeated by the situation, saying that they have to give offerings with all their fruit and meat, and because of it they have nothing left to eat at home. Rice, seeing the villagers being all gloomy and negative about not having anything to eat, comes up with an idea. A moment later we see Meow showing up before the villagers, and it immediately catches their attention with its overwhelming cuteness. Meow turns around for them, trying to lead them somewhere, and they, unable to resist it, keep following Rice's pet. They follow her until they hear a voice telling them that they are welcome to Rice's food stall, and as they look up away from the cat, they see our protagonist standing in an all lit up stall with seats and everything. They can't believe what they are seeing, so they still skeptically slowly approach it, questioning what it is. Rice tells them to first sit, and then he'll be able to take their orders from them. He tells them that they can have a meal for free here, and even drink if they'd like to. And we see that the spirits are helping to keep the tent up. Poor little guys are really struggling, bros. They're still very suspicious of the whole thing, but are also tired from everything that's been going on in their life, so decide to give it a try, and they order the most basic menu that he can provide them with. He gladly accepts their order and gets to cooking, starting right away, pouring all of his passion right in front of them into making food. And just a few moments after, he's already prepared some gorgeous looking fried rice and is now serving them and telling them to enjoy it. The villagers look at the food and then look back at our protagonist, and still in disbelief ask him if it's really free, but we can see on their faces that they are desperate for food. But Rice confirms that it is free with a pleasant smile on his face. Fried rice looked absolutely delicious, and the villagers just couldn't resist trying it, and as soon as they try it, their happiness immediately shoots up as they've never tried a better fried rice in their life. These villagers were pretty loud, expressing their satisfaction with the meal that they attracted the other villagers to that wandered in on our protagonist's food stall, following the laughs and the noise of happiness that were unheard of for some time, so they were curious to find out what's going on. Then the villagers that just ate the fried rice asked for another dish recommendation, as they didn't want this happiness train to stop now. They haven't felt like this in a long time. Rice, seeing that their happiness levels are increasing, happily agrees to make some more food for them, as it was his goal to make their happiness go up little by little. So a few moments later, he already made some delicious looking mussel soup and serves it in front of them right away. They then try that and are absolutely amazed by all the enhanced flavors they can sense from it. Combining their hunger with the rice's impeccable cooking gives you some satisfied and grateful customers. Their happy meter keeps on increasing with every bite they have. Our protagonist anticipated this to happen, and especially now that he's got more food on the menu. He gets a notification that they now officially recognize his efforts, and it says that the happiness of the villagers is increasing. There aren't that many villagers at his stall, but he understands that he needs to make the best with it he can to maximally bring their happiness levels up. So he then figures that a homemade drink from the Ferguson's Pops might do the trick, and as soon as he serves it, we can see people delighted, saying that that was the exact thing that was missing, and people are enjoying their meals even more now. They are all enjoying it to the fullest, with their happiness levels reaching the max, and with our protagonist feeling the pride as he managed to do this in his own way with his own craft. What more could he ask for? It's his life's calling after all to make people happy with the food he makes. And in the meantime, we can see the savior guy now looking slightly pissed as he's observing his purple orb floating in front of him and going through some changes. It seems that our protagonist's strategy is working pretty well, as some of the offerings he gets lose some of their negative energy that grant him the strength. And back to the rice's food stall, we see villagers enjoying our protagonist's food and praising his skills, also saying some dramatic things. They live to see this day come and that this saved them from their utter misery. But the thing is that they don't just get the food, they also get the whole experience, including the show of Rice preparing the food in front of them, being full of passion while he does it. He also uses Meow to help him out with slicing some stuff, and Meow is really entertaining to watch as it's so cute but then so vicious when working around the food. Then a few moments after, we see that our protagonist made another food and eats the cream soup of broccoli. Rice tells his customers that this is the dish that Meow helped make, and we see Meow sitting there next to him, feeling absolutely proud with his chest raised up high. The villagers try it, already expecting it to be great, but their expectations are surpassed tenfold, as this soup is unlike anything they ever tasted before. They all go in unison saying that it's amazing, and the notification pops up saying that the villagers' happiness is skyrocketing, and another one following it says that the power of the dark marble is weakening, and that's the exact thing that Rice is trying to achieve, because otherwise he wouldn't be able to beat Savior Guy. And strangely, he gets a new notification telling him that he's gotten a new customer, and as he looks to the side, he sees a lady looking empty of life and drained of every possibility to be happy. He welcomes her, and she disappointingly tells him that she didn't plan on coming through this stall, as her tastes have changed and she doubts she can even enjoy food anymore. As Rice was curious to find more about her situation, the lady continues saying that a while back she visited a different village and ate a cuisine from an outsider called Mountain Sun, and she says that since that time her tastes have changed and that no matter what she eats, she's never fully satisfied. Rice, listening to this, just thinks to himself how awesome this cook has to be to make a food that's able to change somebody's tastes. But he has his mind on helping this lady out, so he first serves her with bulgogi, which is his special menu item. She tries, not expecting much, but to her surprise it starts tasting amazing, and she says that it tastes just like that person's cooking. It's been a while since she had something this good. Her happiness levels start going up, but Rice, after hearing this, can't help but to want to meet that Mountain Sun guy. He kinda knew that he wasn't the only chef in the game, but now he finally got the name of the other chef and he really wants to find him. But the name Mountain Sun doesn't give him too much information. Maybe if he translated it into Korean, it comes out as Kang Say Hey. Could that be him, the famous chef? And as he's thinking about this and packing his things up, as he's finished with his cooking for the night, we can see notifications popping up informing him that he leveled up some of his cooking skills. Rice then calls the spirits and tells them that he has to take a rest for a bit as he's got a job to do and he wants to leave them to take care of the shop for him, to which they happily agree. Spirits are really happy with how things went and they seem to be pretty content working for our protagonist. And as our protagonist logs off the game, we see another character with long red hair and white apron approaching the restaurant where Rice helped return the livestock. And in the restaurant, the new character asks for the most popular dish. And here we learn that he's also a player, as he says that he heard that this dish was made by the real person, meaning our protagonist. He gets served samgyeopsal and is pretty excited to try it out. And we can see that he's pretty experienced himself, because as soon as he tries it, he starts assessing it, explaining the mechanics of why it tastes so well. He touches upon the way it was made, and he even makes some comments on the precise shape of the meat too. The new character concludes that this definitely had to be made by a skilled person. And now we learn that this guy is actually Mountain Sun, or Kang Sen Hei, who is Bedren's first chef. Meanwhile, in the real world, we see that Aaron prepared a really delicious food for Jaeyoung. The food really looks like an overkill for a kid, but when asked on it by the owner, Mr. Lim, our protagonist says that he's just practicing. It would really be a wonder if the kid could eat the whole thing by himself. So, Mr. Lim decides to join in as well, and the kid and Mr. Lim are enjoying it to their fullest. And our protagonist is really happy seeing the reactions, as it reminds him of the reactions he gets in the game, and that really encourages him that it's not just in the fictional world, but his skills still matter here as well. Mr. Lim suggests that they put this food he just made on the menu. Aram changes his expression to that of longing, as he's thinking of how his cooking really feels, as he's seeing people eating it being so happy. Mr. Lim notices his mood and starts feeling sorry for him for a moment as he understands his troubles. He then calls our protagonist to join them so that they can eat together. And so they spend their time eating and discussing all the ways it was cooked and how all the different ingredients were used, making our protagonist forget about his misfortune. Now a little bit of time passes and now we see Aram telling Miri what food to bring out to their customers. Miri is really doing her best even under pressure, which Mr. Lim notices and appreciates. He thinks to himself how well she works, being able to quickly adapt and keeping such a nice and friendly personality. He understands now why